So now we'll finish up the discussions around habit 1 with part 4. In this habit, in this section of this habit, we're going to talk about the other end of the stick before we totally shift our life's focus to our circle of influence. We need to consider two things in our circle of concern that merit deeper thought: consequences and mistakes. While we are free to choose our actions, we are not free to choose the consequences of those actions. Consequences are governed by natural law. They're out in the circle of concern. We can decide to be dishonest in our business dealings, while the social consequences of that decision may vary depending on whether or not we are found out. The natural consequences to our basic character is a fixed result. Our behavior is governed by principles. Living in harmony with them brings positive consequences. Violating them brings negative consequences. We are free to choose our response in any situation, but in doing so, we choose the intended consequence. When we pick up one end of the stick, we pick up the other. Undoubtedly, there have been times in our lives when we have picked up what we later felt was the wrong stick. Our choices have brought consequences we would rather live without. If we had a choice to make over again, we would make it differently. We call these choices mistakes. For anyone that's lived with regret, perhaps the most and equal exercise of productivity is to realize that past mistakes are also out in the circle of concern. We can't recall them back in. We can't undo them. We can't control the consequence of the results again. The proactive approach is to consider them that a mistake is to acknowledge it and to correct it, learn from it. Not to do this is another mistake. It uses a person's it uses a person places a person on a self-deceiving, self-justifying path, often involving rationalization to self and to others. Our response to any mistake affects the quality of our next moment. The very heart of our circle of influence is our ability to make and keep commitments and promises. The commitments we make to ourselves and to others, and our integrity to those commitments, is the essence and the clearest manifestation of our productivity. It is also the essence of our growth. Through our human endowment as self-awareness and contents, we become conscious of areas of weakness, areas for improvement, areas of talent that can be developed, areas of a change or something to eliminate from our life. Then, as we recognize and use our imagination and independent will to agglomerate awareness, making promises, setting goals, and being true to them, we build our strength of character, the being that makes possible every other positive thing in our lives. It's here that we find two ways to put ourselves in control of our lives. Immediately, we can make a promise and keep it, or we can set a goal and work to achieve it. As we make and keep commitments, we begin to establish an inner integrity that gives us the awareness of self-control and the courage and strength to accept more of a responsibility for our own lives by making and keeping promises to ourselves and others. Little by little, our honor becomes greater than our moods. For the last part of this habit, I'd like you to look at the worksheet called the 30-day test. And this is just a little, it's a private commitment, but I really hope you'll do it and take it seriously. And as we read through this, think about who's going to, we don't have to go through life and death experience to recognize and develop our own productivity. It's in our ordinary events every day that we develop proactive capacity to handle extraordinary pressures of life. It is how we make and keep commitments, how we manage the traffic jam, how we respond to an angry roommate or an upset boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse. It's how we view our problems and where we focus our energies. It's the language we use. Test the principle of proactivity for 30 days. Simply try it and see what happens. For 30 days, work only in your circle of influence. Make small commitments and keep them. Be a light, not a judge. Be a model, not a critic. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Don't argue for other people's weaknesses. Don't argue for your own. When you make a mistake, admit it, correct it, learn from it immediately. Don't take blame, accusing me, working on things that you have no control over. Work on how you look at the weakness of others with compassion, not accusation. It's not what you're doing or should be doing is the issue. The issue is your response to this situation or this and what you should be doing. People who use reality freedom day after day will little by little expand their freedom. So for your 30-day test, I thought I'd like you to choose an area of focus. So let's give an example. Maybe you focus on your health. Maybe your commitment is I will walk for 30 minutes every day for the next 30 days. And then you list events that you'll receive, any challenges you think you're going to face to doing that. So maybe fitting it in, changing your schedule, the weather, whether you have access to treadmill if the weather is bad, or any number of challenges you could have. Then you take the worksheet, fold it up, and put it away. Maybe put a calendar notice or something that will remind you on a daily basis of your commitment. On 30 days, when you get that notice, I hope you'll take out this 30-day worksheet and reflect on what it felt like to have made this commitment and whether you kept it or not. Looking through the ideas that you had when you started it, and if you felt like it was a good commitment, maybe you should change the commitment some. But really think about how making and keeping promises to yourself can help you be more proactive and live more from your circle of influence rather than your circle of concern. And that concludes our discussion for habit one, be proactive.